Hey, hi, hello, how are you? I'm Pia and today I'm going to be doing my wrap up for the month of August. In the month of August, I have no idea how many books I read, about 11 or 12. I read some good books, some bad books, you know how it is, let's get into it. The first book that I read this month was Alistair Burke's The Better Sister. This is her newest thriller. This is kind of about a girl whose sister is married to this guy. This like tragic accident happens with their son, so she gets like a divorce, or he gets a divorce from her, and then the sister years later ends up marrying the guy, and then the guy ends up dead. So it's like, oh no. So sisters are brought back together, they're trying to figure out who murdered him, stuff like that. It was okay. It was underwhelming. I didn't really love it. I was expecting a lot more plot twists. It was kind of, yeah, just underwhelming, undercooked, you know? It's a short book, but I felt like it just kind of dragged and it wasn't really suspenseful or exciting or anything like that. Today's emoji book rating is going to be The Fox, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. Next up, I finally finished a book that I've been reading for like a month, and that was Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This is an exciting sci-fi about this girl named Spencer, whose father was like one of the elite fighter jet people, pilots, that's the word, except he betrayed everyone and got killed. So she's trying to, you know, uncover the truth, become the best pilot, all that jazz. I really liked this. There were parts of it in the middle where it was kind of slow and it did drag a bit, but the end got really exciting. I grew really attached to Spencer and her story. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm not too into sci-fi. It definitely does blow over my head a little bit, so that is why I couldn't really get into this, and that's why I kind of got a little sidetracked. But I did end up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely want to continue with the next book. I have no idea if this is like a series or duology or trilogy or anything like that, but I know there's another book coming out. If you like sci-fi, you're definitely gonna like love it, but like for me, it just like, it doesn't like click with me as much, but the story was still really good and really solid, so yeah. And Brandon Sanderson's writing is so good. This is my first Brandon Sanderson, and he's like so witty, but also like so knowledgeable, and it's a good time. And I read a graphic novel, and that was The Prince and the Dressmaker. And this is by Jen Wang. I loved this. This is the sweetest story. It's about Prince Sebastian, who sometimes he feels like a prince and sometimes he feels like a princess, so he hires a dressmaker who makes him dresses, and they go out at night, and he's all beautiful, and he takes on this persona, I forget, Lady Christilla? And it's a beautiful like exploration of that kind of identity and a friendship that forms with that. I love how well it's explained. By that I mean like the simplicity of it's just like sometimes I feel like a boy, sometimes I feel like a girl, and it's not like we have to like, you know. It was so sweet. I loved the characters so much. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I really want to own it physically. I loved it. It was so. Then I read The Red Skulls of Magic by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu. This is the first book in the Elder Curses series, following Magnus and Alec from the Mortal Instruments series. This is between books 3 and 4, and this is on their trip to Paris, and this was super good. I really love that Magnus and Alec got their own story because they are such interesting characters, and I mean they're OTP, and I really loved seeing the relationship develop between, oh, there was such a sweet female romance in here, like really cute little, I really forget their names. I'm a fake fan. But I love Shadowhunter books. I cannot get enough of them. I want to read all of them. I want more. I don't even care that there's like a million. And I really like this. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Again, I did think it was dragging at times. Maybe I'm getting in a book slump. I don't know. But it did drag a little for being a short book. I felt like they kind of were waiting around and like not doing a lot sometimes. 4 out of 5 stars. Super good if you're into Shadowhunter books. Next up, I listened to the audiobook for Kingsbane. I was like, this book that I'm holding. This is the second book in the Imperium trilogy. This was okay. I listened to the audiobook for Furyborn as well, but I didn't like this as much as Furyborn. Maybe it was just too long. I was listening to it for a long time. Like I was listening to it on my like library on Libby, and then like that expired, so I just took a break, and then I listened to it on Script. It was a whole thing, and I just feel like I got really lost. I still love these characters. It's a very character-driven fantasy about two queens on parallel timelines. One's the Sun Queen, one's the Blood Queen. You kind of get the tables turned in who's really a bad guy and who's not. I really did like the explanation of certain things that were still left, so like how relationships ended up the way they did, and there were some pretty great plot twists as well, but I just didn't love it as much as the other one. Definitely, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I'm gonna finish the series when the last book comes out. I don't know what it's called. Next up I read Heretics Anonymous by Katie Henry. This is a book about the Heretics Anonymous. They're a group of misfits. It's kind of like a Breakfast Club situation with a guy named, I was gonna call him Mike, that's not his name, Michael! Oh my god, I'm so close. He's an atheist and he's going to Catholic school, and he meets this girl and she like speaks up in class and she's like, yo, you're not. And she speaks up in class and she's a feminist and she's great, and he's like, oh my god, I found another atheist in all these religious bullshit. And then he finds out she actually wants to become a priest. He meets the group of misfits. All people can be their own true selves, and they do some shenanigans to try to fix their very corrupt Catholic school. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was fun, it was fast. I think I read it in like one sitting. Actually made me cry. Maybe I was on my period, I don't really know. Next up I read one of my absolute favorites of the year, and that was The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. This is a romance, and it is about Tiffy and Leon who share a flat. So basically Tiffy has it at like the normal times, and then Leon is a doctor, so he works the night shift, so he's always there at the rest of the time. So they're sharing this flat and they have never met each other, but obviously they're gonna meet each other and a romance ensues. It deals with so much more than you would think going into it. Yes, it is a beautiful romance. Yes, it is so healthy and so well done. I love the quirks of all the characters. I think they're very, very well done. And this is a debut. Like, can I talk about this? She's a debut, okay? Anyway, they leave notes for each other. It's the cutest thing ever, but I want to also mention that it does deal with some emotional abuse in Tiffy's past. The writing style of this book is also very different than anything I've read. It has very short clipped sentences. It doesn't have a whole lot exposition, I guess, just because it's like, went there, went that. And it felt natural to the story, and it really didn't hinder my enjoyment of it at all. Obviously I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Oh my god, all the other books went downhill from here. Then I read Educated by Tara Westover. This is a memoir about a girl who grows up Mormon. This bananas family. What even is it? They're kind of, it's a lot about her relationship with her father, who has bipolar disorder and is always preparing for the end of the world, and she has to kind of live in this warped sense of reality, and it's not until later in her life where she discovers, you know, that's not how things are going, it's not the end of the world, you know, stuff like that, and through that she learns like to love education and to work for education or whatever. This is just not my thing. I don't think memoirs are my thing. I have read like celebrity memoirs, which I liked enough. In some ways it kind of looked down upon people with bipolar disorder. I know people with bipolar disorder and they're completely like functioning humans, and it kind of was like, oh, this man has bipolar disorder and that's why he's crazy. And I was like, can we dig a little deeper there? Like, no sis. Anyway, so I didn't really like it. I just don't think it's my thing. I didn't like the writing style. I got so bored. I didn't want to finish this. I had to read it for school. It was my required reading, one of them. I just like didn't care. I was like, I would have DNF'd it if like, I didn't really like it. If you liked it, it's fine. I've read reviews and like I get it, but like, then I listened to the audiobook for Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is about a magic school with Simon Snow and his roommate Baz. And Baz is a vampire and he's kind of evil. They have a hate to love relationship, which I am in love with. And then there's also Penny, who's kind of like the Hermione character, best friend, stuff like that. Basically, there's this guy, and he's kind of like the Voldemort of this world, and he's always chasing down Simon Snow. Simon Snow has all this power, and he doesn't know what to do with it. He's not a very good wizard. This was really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This is a Harry Potter kind of fanfic, like if, I was gonna say Voldemort. If Draco and Harry like had a, but I had to kind of see past that. I wanted to see it as its own story. I did really like it for that. Obviously, it is so much like Harry Potter. I liked the big differences between the characters. They were all very complex. I loved Simon Snow. Like, Simon Snow was so good. He did not want to be like a chosen one. He did not know what the fuck he was doing, and it was just like me. He was just like a little clumsy like boy and the sweetest thing in the whole world. He's like, am I even gay? And I'm like, it's lovely. It's a lovely book. Then I listened to another great book on audio, and this was one of my TBR jar picks. This was Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins. This is the companion novel to Prince Charming, which I read like 2 months ago. And this is a female-female romance between Flora, who's the princess of Scotland, I think, a girl named Millie Quint from Texas, and they're at a Scottish boarding school. I love boarding schools. That's one of my favorite tropes. Basically, they become roommates. They hate each other. Flora is very very brash. She speaks her mind, she doesn't give a fuck. There's some lovely cameos from people in the other books, which I loved. I like, oh, I love this world. And they obviously develop a female-female romance, which is just so good, well-timed, beautifully paced. It was such a good time. 4 out of 5 stars. Loved it a lot. I read this and I was like, wow, I want love in my life. And that's about it. And then lastly, I read another required reading for school, and that was 1,000 Acres by Jane Smiley. I actually have a reading blog where I read this. It was stressful. This is very similar to Educated, except it is fiction. This is about a girl named Jenny and her 2 other sisters. They live on a farm. They have a dad who abuses them. It's so similar. Like, it actually is so crazy how similar these books are. They work on the farm. 2 of them stayed on the farm. They do their thing. One of them went to college, became a lawyer, like crazy, right? Yeah, so all of a sudden their father is kind of going crazy. He's kind of just old and senile. And he's like, listen, I'm gonna split up the farm. And they're all like, ah, and he's making these crazy decisions and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And listen, this book is just like so bad. Maybe the most predictable book I've ever read. Poorly done. It was so long, it dragged, everything was nothing was happening. And like there were like plot twists and I was like, oh, I didn't like it. The characters were bad. It wasn't that they were unlikable. I'm trying to like not say that like, oh, I didn't like this book because the characters were unlikable, because that's obviously a choice. But the characters they weren't redeemable. They had terrible things done to them, of course. Trigger warning for sexual abuse and emotional abuse. But didn't like this book, gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Again, I would have DNF'd it if it wasn't for required reading. Quite a mixed bag of books I read. Glad I read some of them. Some of them are all-time favorites, some of them are meh, some of them were terrible. I hope to read some better books in September, and I will see you on my next video. Bye.